Oh, it's good to see you.
So good to see you. It's been a while.
Right.
Come
Okay.
on in. Here's our new location. What do you think?
Oh, it's fantastic. My word, I can see all kinds of projects I want to make.
Yarn comes from all over the place, and we really like to support lots of different independent small dyers. There's hand dyers, so we'll have yarn like this. It'll be produced such that it is twisted
that's
like
gorgeous,
this.
yes.
And here I actually untwisted one to show
Oh,
you.
isn't that pretty?
And this is hand dyed in water bass.
Ooh.
And then you have to actually wind this by hand, and you usually have an assistant. It used to be my children, and then they go like this.
Yes.
And you make a ball, or you use the umbrella swift.
The umbrella swift?
Yes. You want to see where the umbrella swift is?
Yeah.
See, and I get very good with doing this with my chin. You
Yeah.
go like this.
Yeah.
And voila. This is the umbrella swift here.
Ah.
And then we have the ball winder all the way over here. And each one of these skeins are going to get wound into a ball. It works much faster to do this. And sometimes you can't find a small child or some significant other who wants to hold their hands up.
Like my husband.
Yes.
Now, Ellen, tell me, how did you get started in business? What motivated you to do this?
Well, that is a really good question. And I guess I would say a series of unfortunate events.
Oh, well, and sometimes this way it happens.
Exactly. And I had a dream 25 years ago, not an actual dream, but a hope of one day starting a nonprofit and working with different populations of people and teach them. And it just so happens that I was able, because of this bad thing that happened in my life, to just say, well, if I don't do it now, when?
Right.
When I was already in my 40s, and I said,
This is it.
how much longer can I wait to try this thing that may or may not be successful? So that's sort of how I got started. I did a 180 from being a scientist and working in a laboratory, doing some really interesting research, cancer research, MS and asthma research, and on the side, I was teaching people at a bunch of different knitting stores how to knit. And I went to all of them, and they outsourced their lessons with me. But I also worked with an elementary school, and that's where I derived my passion for what I'm doing.
So who are you teaching now?
Oh my gosh, I'm teaching so many different people, adults, children, but a lot of people that I work with have autism, or intellectual disabilities or physical disabilities. And I work with my friend Toya on Mondays at a school in Philadelphia, an elementary school, and we work with children that have autism. Some are nonverbal, and some are higher functioning autistic individuals, but some are somewhere on the spectrum, and they all benefit from it.
So what are the benefits that they receive from learning how to knit?
Actually, they're learning how to crochet. We're teaching them how to crochet. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. The benefits are very intangible. The sense of satisfaction.
Yeah.
The smiles that they get on their face. The fact that they're accomplishing something. Now, with some of the older kids or different kids, it creates a lot more community and conversation, and external to the time that we're working with them too. It's something that they look forward to. So the benefits are innumerable. One of the things as a scientist that I think really happens is that gradually over time, their brain, whoever it is making new connections. That when I worked with kids at Children's Hospital with my friend Tori, and she's an occupational therapist, they wanted the kids to do a bimanual activity, meaning that it involves both hands so that both sides of their brains would be working, because they had hemiparesis due to cerebral palsy. So what I fundamentally believe is that there are different pathways that are created, and I would love for some experiments to be done, but that's not for me to discuss now, to show over time how this impacts the brain and just one's overall being. It helps with stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, all that sort of stuff. But 25 years ago, when I was noticing this and working at the different shops, it was very clear to me that it was something that was more than just meditative. And that about 25 years ago, when I came up with the idea to do a nonprofit, it was very clear that something more was happening, that it wasn't just meditative.
I found with my own students that in the beginning, they would be kind of overwhelmed with what I was teaching. And I realized that what was needed was for the brain to grow synapses to deal with these new ideas. And so it parallels with what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
I feel like what's happening is people get little light bulb moments.
Yes, they do.
Like this morning, I was working with a group of women, but there's a lot of men who crochet and knit too.
Yes.
And they were being a little bit hard on themselves. And I always tell people, your hands, muscles, and tendons have to get used to it, but also I think there are new connections being made. And just to know that if you persevere and keep doing it, you'll have these aha moments, these light bulb moments where you go, oh, and it becomes much easier over time.
I found with writing my books, I would sometimes come up against a problem. How do I solve this so that the students can use this? And I would go to bed at night and I would wake up at 3 a.m. Wow, I know what to do. I never went through the procedure of working through it step by step. The right side of my brain did it instead. And it sounds like that's what we're talking about.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And in fact, as a scientist, I was doing that when I was teaching. Mm-hmm. So everybody learns a little bit different. And
right, they do.
And 25 years ago, there was no YouTube.
Yes, that's true.
And it was really books. I taught myself. And when I started to need working with all different populations of people, kids, adults, I had to come up with creative ways to impart that knowledge, to give them a trick or something to help it make it easier. And then I would refine what I was teaching verbally as opposed to writing it down. And I'd come up with these aha moments and say, okay, when you crochet, flip it like a book. Or when you're knitting, okay, make sure that the yarn is here. And then have little bullet points. Or even when I'm teaching someone how to read a pattern, and maybe you add a few words here and then it makes sense. So this refinement over time, like you were doing with your writing,
right,
and having these aha moments is exactly what I do all the time.
This is a book like the one my mother brought home when I had pneumonia, and this is how I learned to knit from this book. I'm self-taught. Well, I started knitting when I had pneumonia in 7th grade and have slowly, project by project, worked up until I'm now designing my own sweaters. I was so busy with my writing and business that I put this in the closet, and in the meantime, the moths got in.
Uh-oh. I get many people who come in with something that's really special to them, and they want it fixed. And,
right. Yeah, here we are.
That's one of the things that I tell everybody. Anybody can go out and buy a sweater.
Right, that's true.
And it used to be very different. People knitted really because they needed to make their clothing.
Right, sure.
But the difference is nowadays the love and the care when you make something for someone else, that's what we hold on to. And in fact, below you, I'm repairing somebody's blanket that had a tear this big.
Ooh.
And I've worked on other pieces. But as far as this piece is concerned, there's probably a number of different options you can do.
Really?
So this is actually what this is weaving. What they're actually showing here in this method is they're doing about the top of a sock, and they're doing what's called Kitchener stitch.
Oh, is that what it is?
And you have to have the same number of stitches.
Right.
And when I read this, it's back then they might have called it weaving, but this is a method so that you have a seam, no seam at the top of a sock.
Right, really works. I've done it.
But you can also use it for other things. I've had people that unfortunately have had to decapitate a sweater and then do the Kitchener stitch and fix what was wrong. With something like this, there's probably a couple different options.
Oh.
You can do something that's called duplicate stitch, which mimics the knitted work and go on top of it. Or actually, there's probably 3 different ways. Another way I do is there's another way where you can, and it'd be too difficult to explain it on camera right now, but you can create a temporary, you take the color and you put it on the top and you have like 4 or 5 strands like this, and then you weave on top of it, and you can mimic and just go right on top of this, and nobody would see this.
That's what I was thinking would work. Yeah.
So that's a whole different technique. And
Yeah.
then with some other people's stuff where you have the yarn, so that's a good thing.
I have plenty of it.
So sometimes I've had to take out part of a seam, use some of that yarn to do the repair, and then use a different color yarn. But something like this, all the time, one thing that I learned the hard way with moss, because they are so, they're prevalent. So what I get are these big Ziploc bags.
Yeah, that's what I should
They're
have
about
done.
2 gallons. They're huge. So I store all my projects in it. But something like this, this is fairly extensive. I would probably say we will read up on how to do it because it's too difficult to explain on camera. Go on top of it and then mimic these stitches so this disappears. This is pretty big. But if we didn't have...
Made it worse.
If we didn't have it, sometimes what I do is I take a crochet hook
Yeah.
and I can ladder it through.
I
and,
tried, that didn't
and
work.
other times what I
Yeah.
do is I take some thread that's the same color and I can make it pretty much disappear. But this is pretty big, so that's what
is.
I would recommend for this. But don't fret, know that it can be fixed.
Fortunately, the moss left the design alone. And that's a big plus, because to try and fix this
with
would
the
have been-
Japanese knitting.
Oh, please.
You've designed several patterns with this Japanese knitting, and I agree with you. I think some of the Japanese designs are so incredibly beautiful.
They are.
They also publish books very differently. There's Japanese
I know.
knitting techniques, and they have a very standardized system where it's just all on one page if you're making a sweater.
Yeah, I mean,
they
this
maybe
is
even
some
have some sweater patterns in the back I've seen. There's a
don't
couple,
think in here.
no, not on this one, but there's a couple of them.
Look at all these stitches.
So I love books, so I do
Yeah, me
have
too.
a good collection of books, including
I know you do.
Japanese knitting books.
Your library is very, very tempting. And I know I don't have the time to do it. I'm saying, okay, Laurel, you see all these projects that you would just love to do in the store. Don't buy anything. You're not going to get it done. Get this sweater fixed and then maybe come back.
So we have people here who will have multiple projects.
Right.
We call it timeout, like this went into timeout. And for me, I always have an easy project and a hard project. So maybe in the end of a day where I'm kind of tired and maybe a little bit burnt out, I will knit something that's sort of easy, like I'm working right now. And what you find, what's really happening with the brain is your brain is producing dopamine, serotonin, some of these feel-good things, and you just start relaxing and you get into this zone that's actually called flow. So this flow state is what a lot of people describe as feeling so good about knitting or crochet. But there's the caveat. In the beginning, you're going to be incredibly frustrated. You're going to make a lot of mistakes.
That's true.
And I was very hard on myself when I made mistakes in the beginning.
No.
I would make sure I would say, Ellen, you cannot go to bed until you get back where you were.
I know. I do that too.
But I learned something.
Yes.
That another friend,
Yes.
I won't go into the full story, that gave me the epiphany that, hey, people say to me all the time, you are so good at fixing mistakes, right? So good at fixing mistakes.
Yeah, right.
And then finally I had to say, you know what? It came to me again, like, why am I so good at fixing mistakes? And the answer is because I've made so many mistakes. I can now look at something and decipher. And that took a lot of time. It took years and years and years. I would say it probably took me a good 5 to 10 years where I got much better.
Sounds like I should leave my sweater here.
Well, we do have an infirmary and I do work on things, but there is a backlog.
Yeah,
I could show you the blanket that I'm working on now.
Right, okay, I'm taking it home. Take it home. Ellen, I know how busy you are. You're just as busy as I am.
Yeah, but you know what? I really love what I do.
I know you do.
I wake up every day excited.
I know. That's why everybody comes here.
I never know who's going to be in here. We do have appointments so that I can stay on track.
I know.
That doesn't always pan out, but I think that it really shows that we really love what we do. We love helping people, and it extends beyond what's in here. So If somebody has surgery, for instance, a surgery that's coming up, and this is what I envisioned way back when I said, if I could ever have a store, and the nonprofit, that I wanted, I will call up somebody and say, good luck on your surgery, or at least text it, good luck on your surgery. Then I'll check up on them, say, how are you doing?
Right.
Do you, because we create a community here.
Oh, you're a magnet. No way around it. Yeah.
Well, but that's like, it's not that hard to be kind, to be thoughtful.
That's right.
And
It's easier
it doesn't
to do that.
really take much more energy. And so that's what we would envision.
That's right.
And really, the store all came about because I had the dream for having a nonprofit, and knew without having a store, I mean to say, if I didn't have a store, there was no way that we could do a nonprofit, because how would anybody find out about it? How would I train? Like, how could I find people then that say, you know what, it's a really great idea, and they want to be involved in it? And also, there are, I also thought to myself, there are a lot of people who retire, and just like, so I was thinking about lots of different things at the time. But there are people that retire and still want to be involved in something.
Right, sure.
So you may be a social worker, you may be a scientist, you may be a therapist, all that sort of stuff. And with their background, that they would work well with different populations of people. And then I teach them how to teach, which is very different than just teaching somebody. And that takes a lot of time. But indeed, there are a lot of people that say, you know what, I really want to do this. I want to work with people who are homebound, or many times, I worked with maternity patients on long-term bed rest. So, so they don't feel so isolated staying in a hospital bed for X number of months.
Learning how to teach people to teach others. That sounds like a really good project.
Oh,
really
definitely.
In that. Yeah. Boy, this is something else. Tell me, how did you get the funding to open a store? What did you do?
Well, one of two things. I didn't have the funding. I went to TD Bank, and I came up with a business plan that was more of a visual business plan. They wanted something cut and dry, really easy. So it was some sort of like a flow chart where it would say where the revenue would come through and everything like that. And they gave me a small business loan.
And that started it.
Wow. I also had some help from my cousins who believed in what we were doing. So that's how it all got started, was just on a dream and a belief, and really working a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah. So your business is solvent?
It is now currently solvent, and
Great.
Now we've got a couple people that are coming on board to work part-time, and then what I have planned is for this fall that I will be doing more of the volunteer work. So Monday has always been my theoretical day off, where I go to the elementary school, or we're doing some other things. I also mentor another young lady, so I keep myself pretty busy. But now we've been asked to expand the program, so we will be working with more students in more schools, and so I'm gonna, it's gonna be interesting. I feel like we're at the precipice of something bigger.
Yeah.
But the hard work, 8 years of hard work,
also
have really, paid off, and that not monetarily speaking, but in that we're able to do and move to the next step forward.
Well, there's more rewards with the business than just money. I mean, if we do have to, you do have to watch the bottom line, but the real reward with a business isn't necessarily a big bank account.
No, and I think about that a lot, and unfortunately, one of the motivators for me to do this was unfortunately losing a number of good friends when they were young. And that was sort of, I really had to push myself and say, do I want to do this or not? But, at the end of the day, what's really important, it's the relationships that you make.
That's true.
It's your friends, it's your family. Do you make a mark? Have you changed somebody else's life? I've even had a few people that have said to me, it sounds very cliche or whatever, but they've said to me, Ellen, you've saved my life. They were in such a deep depression that they had something to do, and they felt proud of what they were able to accomplish.
That's very important. Tell me, have you ever?
Yeah, actually, I have a lesson now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll hang around. I want to get more.
Okay, what's that?
How'd you do all this?
I don't know.
Neither do I.
I don't think I slept much.
Yeah,
I worked
right.
really hard. I made a few mistakes, but
Well,
you
everybody
know,
does.
yeah,
You don't learn anything if you don't make mistakes.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I always say that.
I used to tell my students, I mean, they'd be so afraid they'd make a mistake. I can remember this woman, she had a big position with the gas company in Philadelphia. She's, just relax. It's just paper.
But that's sometimes the best accidents happen.
that's
when
right.
you've made mistakes, because I know, for
Accident
instance, in
calls
my
people.
life, I would have thought that I would have never imagined that if somebody said that, oh, you'll be doing this 30 years from now. I would have said, really? I'm going to have a store. I'm going to have a nonprofit. I'm going to be doing this kind of work. So you just never know where your life's going to take you. And that's what I tell a lot of the kids that I work with is this one thing I say, be careful what you say yes to and be careful what you say no to. Because this all started because I offered to take over an enrichment program. I had been teaching knitting to second, third, and fourth graders. And then I was asked to take over the enrichment program in its entirety. I paused and I thought, okay, I can do it. It's for second graders. Then she said, by the way, Ellen, we're expanding it K through 4. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I got to come up with a lot of classes. So I came up with a lot of classes. And then I saw how it was helping kids. And then I was like, oh, this would be a really good thing to do and work with kids. And, it just kind of evolved. Anyway, you just never know.
You know what the French say, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Exactly. Now I get to work 7 days a week. But you know what? I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Good, good. I know, I can
but
tell.
between Memorial Day and Labor Day, I take off Sundays because
That's good. It's good to take Sundays
I
off.
need some days off.
Right, exactly.
So-
Now, I want you to tell everybody about this retreat. What's happening with this?
So this is the first year we're going to go to a small camp
Yes,
in New York.
yes.
North near
Yes.
the Black Lake, I believe. It's going to last for 4 days. It's a Thursday through a Sunday. And we're going to go visit an alpaca farm and do a bunch of other fiber-related stuff. But it's just going to be a small group of us going to be together and hang out and just enjoy the beautiful nature. I love nothing more than sitting out in nature and just knitting or crocheting.
Adult camp.
It's adult camp. So actually, I went. I don't know if you know who Meg Swanson is, but she's the daughter of Elizabeth Zimmerman. Elizabeth Zimmerman was a fabulous, funny woman who wrote many books, one of which I love. I recommend it highly, Knitting Without Tears. But she invented or unvented a lot of different things. Her daughter, actually, Elizabeth started this camp, and then Meg took it over. And so I would go to Marshfield, Wisconsin, every year for about 7 years. So, this was also sort of in the back of my head. And being that one of our customers has a camp, he said, when are we going to do this? I've been pushing off for a number of years because I've been so busy. But anyway, so it's just going to be doing fibery stuff. They have boats. We're going to do picnics, barbecue, of course. How can you not do that? And we have a lot of things that we are working on still.
And my guess is that alpacas have contributed some yarn.
Oh, yes. We are definitely going to stop at the alpaca farm and buy some alpaca yarn because they are just such cute animals.
Now, do you have any other future projects in mind at present?
Oh.
So,
do I have future projects? I have a lot of them. So one many years ago was for me to get involved in the Philadelphia School District and work with children.
Right.
And I also had wanted to work with some of the surrounding areas near us. We are practically on the border of Philadelphia. I grew up in the suburbs. My father grew up in West Philly, my mother in Northeast Philly and South Philly, I found out recently. So I'd like to expand that program.
Yeah.
I also have wanted to work with people who are incarcerated or have been incarcerated because a lot of times they've just had bad luck in life. And certainly not someone who's very violent or anything, but to impart that wisdom and knowledge so that they can feel like they've worked on something and that maybe turns into something else. You never know.
What you wear matters. And when these women are through with their incarceration, they're going to need some decent clothes to get a job.
And even men.
That's
So-
true too.
Yep.
It's true too. Men like this too.
Actually, men were really the first people to knit and crochet, and women were not allowed in the knitting guilds. I think it was the
Really?
late 1880s and something like that. Yeah,
That's
and men
outrageous.
fishermen, they crocheted and stuff. So it kind of did a flip flop. But there's a lot of other ideas that I have. Of course, I've worked with nurses and support staff at a hospital, but I'd like to work with physicians and maybe other people like that.
The attitude, the positive can-do attitude keeps people alive longer and in better health. So I think you can look forward to a long, long life, which we hope you do have.
But I have an interesting segue here to talk about my friend Cheryl who passed away.
Yes.
I would, and I had taught cancer patients and wanted to expand the program and work with people at Fox Chase Cancer Center where I worked. I did teach the volunteers there. I've worked with cancer patients, but Cheryl, my dear friend, who did pass away from cancer,
Yes.
and I would go with her to get her infusions for platelets and stuff. She and I would knit together, and everybody else was watching TV. This was many years ago.
Yes,
but
yes.
I've worked in facilities where I needed to be totally gowned up. So I have no problem working with a cancer patient who would be immunocompromised and wearing gloves because I could still be my goofy self and teach them. But with Cheryl, she lived longer than she was expected to live. I went to one of her appointments, and she said to the doctor, doctor, how much longer do I have to live? And the doctor said, you've already outlived your life expectancy. So one of the things that I had wanted to do for Fox Chase Cancer and other places is to teach, because I think naturally there's a mind-body connection.
There is.
Naturally, then you will have better outcomes because you're going to be supporting your immune system. The sheer joy, the radiance, you can never take that away from anybody.
I want to make an appointment with you in the future, in the near future, to fix this sweater, because I have a rule. I do not make something else until I finish what I'm already working on.
There's two different types of people, Laurel.
Yes.
There are the monogamous knitters and crocheters that only will work on one project at a time. And then there are those of us who have multiple projects. So I have a hard project, an easy project, one for when I'm traveling. That's one of the great things of knitting crochet. It's easy to transport. But I understand you being like that. I happen to be not monogamous with specifically my knitting and crocheting. Everything else I am. But
I have to be monogamous with this because I'm all over the place with a whole lot of other projects. And if you were to see my home, you'd say, my word, I can't believe she's not in her house trying to clean it up.
Well,
but
I love the work you do too, and I hope in the future you will be coming with me to work with some of these children.
Sounds good.
There's nothing better when you're working like Toya and I did recently with kids that had autism and one that was actually nonverbal, and the joy in his eyes and how excited he was. He would laugh. He was so happy.
Right. It's now I find with sewing, the best time to teach is 13 up. Younger than that, there's a variety of skills that you need in order to draft and sew. So that works best. But younger children can learn how to use the machine, various aspects of this, and do well.
And with knitting and crochet, I've taught as young as 4.5. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I wait to see when that child has interest. But generally by 6 or 7, if that child has a lot of interest, it's good. I now actually have to go teach. I have someone that's been waiting for me very patiently. And
thank her for us.
Yes, I will.
All right, Ellen.
Off I go.
It's been fantastic.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Laurel. You're the best.
Thank you. All right. I'll see you on YouTube.
Okay.